Hey guys, it's Nadia. Welcome to my first Q&A video. I apologize in advance if I'm super awkward or if it's a little bit rough. I did read through the questions, but I didn't really sit there and think about it because I really wanted this to be kind of like we're having a conversation. So I'm not the best at speaking, so we'll see how this goes. Let's get started. So first question is from Vamprin. She asks, how do you face the future when it seems really scary? When you think about whether or not you will actually end up where you want to go art-wise? And how do you deal with self-confidence if that's ever an issue? So the future can be really scary. I do think about the future a lot, but I also tend to focus on here and now and like the near future, just because I had to learn this, and my husband has been really helpful in this sense, because I used to be a very planned person. Like everything was planned, and if it didn't go to plan, then it would be really stressful for me, and I don't think it was good for my mental health. So I've had to learn to just focus on what I know I can deal with right now, and big things in the future will eventually work themselves out. And art-wise, I mean, it's been, a journey already. It is a little bit scary because it's a very unpredictable market, I guess. So that's a little frightening. But people have been so supportive so far, and I'm not too worried. Like whenever I get worried, I just talk to some of my good art friends, and they usually like slap me in the face. Not literally, because we're just talking online, and I don't think they would do that literally if we were in person anyway. Just tell me, just chill. Everything's good. So, and as far as low self-confidence, if that's an issue, it is an issue. It's something that I have been trying to work on in myself for a while now. I've never been a super confident person. I was always that girl bullied in school before I was homeschooled. Because of my past, I feel like I'm not the most confident person, but I'm getting there, and I'm learning to accept myself for who I am and to improve upon the things that I don't really care much about myself. So Sophie Regal asks, how did or do you learn anatomy, and how much do you practice drawing? I mean, hours per day, in years, etc. So I honestly haven't done a whole lot of studying. I did, when I was in college, I did take some life drawing classes, so that really helped. I also have some books, and there are online tools that I can link in the description that you can use to learn life drawing. So I actually use an app on my phone called Art Pose FE. The FE stands for female. And there's a male version if you draw guys more often than females, and that's really helpful for me. So I don't particularly sit there studying. I would like to start, and that's a goal of mine, is to start sketching in my sketchbook, actually doing studies and things like that. So as far as years go, I guess I've been kind of studying anatomy for 3-4 years. Scribbles, she asks, what's something you want to improve on both in art and life? Well, art, I really want to do bigger pieces, and I want to get better at anatomy, drawing different faces, because I kind of had that same, oh my goodness, the same face syndrome thing going on. So that's something that I want to improve on. In life, I want to improve on better time management, because I've never been very good at time or keeping track of it or managing it. So that's definitely something that I would like to improve on in myself, so that I can be better about meeting deadlines, so that I'm not pushing myself until the very last minute. Finariv asks, where do you get your inspiration from? Do you use reference pictures? And if yes, which kind of way do you use them? So my inspiration comes from all over the place, to be honest. Obviously other artists are good places to get inspiration from. nature books. I love reading like fantasy and young adult books. They're really good for inspiration, and music is a really good place that I get inspiration from as well. So reference pictures, I don't really use them unless I'm really stuck on something, just because I like to let things kind of flow. If I'm working on a bigger piece, I would probably use reference, but I haven't done very many big pieces, so that's why I say like if I did. Andrada Savu asks, what did you enjoy drawing as a child? That's a really good question. As a kid, I drew females. Yep, just like now. I drew my dog once. I used to draw more fantastical type of drawings, so like I drew a mushroom house with some fairies, but mainly females. I liked drawing fashionable clothes. I'm really glad I didn't become a fashion designer because those were hideous. Joanna Oli asks, how do you decide what palette of colors to use in a piece? That's a really hard one for me, which is why I kind of stick to my red color theme, because colors are very difficult for me to choose. You know, a year ago when I was doing the watercolor and brush pen drawings, I was using primary colors, so I really stuck to red, blue, and yellow, and I didn't really mix them together except to mute the tones, if that makes sense. Color schemes are very difficult for me. I would like to try to expand on that a little bit. Obviously, still keep the red thing going on because I really love red. But yeah, that's a hard one. I'm sorry that I don't have a better answer. Elisa Sturkey, I'm so sorry, I'm probably butchering your name, asks, in the past 3 years, which 3 artists have influenced your work the most? Audra Claire is one of them. She makes really beautiful work. Ravina Kai, I don't actually know if that's how you pronounce her last name, and I'm super sorry, Ravina, if you ever somehow come across this video and watch this and I have butchered your last name. Her work is very beautiful. She uses graphite and then digitally colors things, and it's gorgeous, her strokes and her lines and everything. And another one is probably James Jean. I really like the surreal feel that he has to his work. I actually have a book of all the Fables comics covers that he did, and they're just beautiful, beautiful. Jisupi asks, do you plan out your goodness guys, I'm sorry. Do you plan out your illustrations or just let them flow out of your hand? So most of the time I just let them flow. Even when I have an idea for an illustration, honestly, it's very difficult for me to visualize it in my head, and I know that sounds really, really weird, being an artist who is a visual person. It's more of a feeling, and so I kind of just let it flow. And then once I get that concept down, then I can work on an actual piece. But a lot of times with like my postcard pieces and the little ink drawings and whatnot, those I don't plan out at all. They just happen, which is why there are mistakes. Scribbles, she asks, what is your favorite medium to work with? Why and when did you learn about this medium? So my favorite medium is watercolor. I started using watercolor a year ago, maybe. Like I said, I'm really bad at time, I'm sorry. And I really like it, the why part of the question. I love watercolors because they just flow nicely, and I like that if you mess up, then, you know, it's kind of erasable in its own way. Like you can lift up the color. It doesn't lift up all the way, but it's really easy. Well, not really easy. It's possible to fix your mistakes with watercolor. Whereas, I mean, I guess you can with other mediums too, with that logic. Deadpooline asks, how do you keep consistent when posting drawings to Instagram? Alternatively, how do you get over laziness and post and draw consistently? So I'm actually probably not as consistent as you guys might think. I post drawings when I have something to post. It seems, looking at my feed, it's usually about every 3 days, but it's not something that's on purpose. with, I like the second part of the question, like how do you get over the laziness and force myself to draw? Well, I really just have to remind myself that this is my job, this is my career. So if I want to reach people who could possibly support me monetarily, then I need to keep up with posting, because if I don't, then there's nothing to really like keep that connection with people. And I worked really hard to make that connection with people, and I'm still working hard to make new connections and continue the current connections. So if I don't feel like drawing, then I kind of just have to get over it, because it's my job. And if I was working for an employer, I wouldn't just be able to tell them, I don't really feel like doing that work today, sorry. I would get fired. So being your own boss can be really difficult, but you kind of just have to tell yourself, like, if you don't work, then you're gonna get fired. Okay, Brimstodial asks, considering your latest development and wanting to evolve your work, how important is consistency to you? Is it something you're fearful to let go of? What drives you to pursue this new course and trying out new mediums and styles? Consistency is kind of a tricky thing to define, not in the definition of itself, but in artwork. And the reason why I say that is because people try really hard to find a style, but realistically, the more you draw, the more you paint, the more you do what you're practicing to do, a style will form in itself. So consistency in an artistic sense is, I think, a little bit different. So it is important in my mind for me to stay consistent, but I know that no matter what I make, there's going to be something that is my signature, and therefore it will remain consistent. But I'm not striving to make the same thing over and over again, if that makes sense. I mean, even trying out new mediums, you can work in a new medium and still have your signature style. So, like, if you're an oil painter, the way that you make your strokes, or the way that you stylize your facial features, or whatever you might draw, flowers or whatever, carrying that over into a graphite drawing or a colored pencil drawing or even watercolor, that's all going to carry over. Even though it's a different medium, it's still going to be consistent in someone's style. So is consistency important? Yes, but I wouldn't force consistency, because I think that's where it actually is inconsistent, if you try to force yourself to be consistent. I'm sorry, that was... hopefully that was understandable. Arurumi asks, can you make a few tutorial vids about drawing certain things? For example, a video on how you draw hair. Yes, I will be doing tutorials soon. And actually there are some other questions that were in here too. Somebody asking about hands and shading. So I will be making tutorials on those things in the foreseeable future. I don't know exactly when yet, but it'll be within the next couple of months. Savani Sketches Art asks, what tips do you have for small artists like me who want to grow their following and don't really know how to get started with keeping up, practicing basics, and possibly starting to sell art online? Again, with this question, that was one that was asked a few times. I'm probably going to make another video to explain everything, but I'll just kind of run over a few basics. As far as practicing, I mean, really just get yourself into your routine. Just practice and study what you want to achieve in your own artwork. As far as selling art online, that's really a personal preference type of thing, because nobody can really be the judge of if your work is ready to sell or not. So if you feel ready, then you should go for it. And you can ask the feedback of other people and just go from there. Dorito Jesus. Sorry. asks, how long did you take to get to a point where you could say, yeah, I can sell this, about a majority of your artwork? It was probably about a year ago, although I didn't really push it then. It was about that point where, sorry, my cat is trying to take my fake flowers again. It was about that point where I started thinking, this is probably good enough quality for me to sell. Ramwort asks, what do you do when you have art block? A lot of times I just step away. I have in the past tried to force myself to just make art, and it doesn't work. And I think it's really unhealthy. And that's just a personal preference. For me, it does not work to force myself to get more art out if I have art block. So what I normally do nowadays is either watch a movie or a TV show that I find inspiring. I read a book, I listen to music, I go on a walk. I just step away from art, like making art completely. Give my mind a break from that, and then when I come back to it, I'm usually refreshed enough to get out of that art block. But sometimes that doesn't work that quickly, and sometimes I have art block for a week. It just depends, and I'm learning about myself to not burn myself out in that way. So Rurumi asks, what is your occupation? I was thinking about becoming a concept artist, but I don't know how it's going to work, like financially and stuff like that. So my occupation is, I just consider myself an illustrator. I think of a story or a feeling and I illustrate that. I would eventually like to get into book illustration, but I haven't taken that step yet. So really my occupation is just like a self-employed artist trying to make money, online with Patreon and selling originals and prints and stickers and things like that. So as far as you wanting to become a concept artist, I think, if that's something you really want to do, then you can look into different options, especially financial options like scholarships. I hate to say loans. It works for some people, but I don't know. I just know so many people who have gotten loans to go to school for something and it wasn't worth it for them. So I don't really want to recommend that, but it's an option out there. Tiana Lily Grace asks, why do you use red, pink, white color schemes often? What gold paint do you use? Do you have any tips on anatomy? So the red, pink, white color scheme is just something that I started doing. I was very drawn to red. I really like red because it's vibrant, but it's not blinding. I mean, it is to some people, but and I think I like it because it just has a sense of mystery to it, because red means so many different things. It can mean passion, it can mean danger, a warning, or it can mean love. I mean, it just has so many different aspects to it, and I really like that about red, and the variation thereof. As far as gold paint, I get asked this a lot. It's a gold ink that I found in Japan when I was on a mission trip at a little mom pop art shop. And I have no idea what brand it is. It's in a little ceramic bowl, and the text on the outside is Japanese, but I honestly don't think it's a brand name because I have not been able to find anything online resembling that. So I'm really worried about running out eventually. And anatomy, I mean, really, it just comes down to studying. If you can attend life drawing classes, then I would really recommend that, because in life drawing, you are seeing something in three-dimensional viewpoints, and you're gonna see two different angles because your eyes, they see like this, so you're seeing different sides. Whereas a photo or a video that you could find online or in one of those modeling books where it has anatomy studies for you to do, it's two-dimensional, so you're not seeing it the same way that you would in real life. So I would recommend trying to do real life if you can, but I understand not being able to. Since I left college, I haven't attended any life drawing classes. Coffee, I think. Sorry. Does music inspire your art in any sort of way? If so, what type of music does? Your art is amazing. I love you so much. Aw, I love you too. That's so sweet. Music, yes, it does inspire my art a lot. What kind of music? You know, I don't really know what the genre is of my favorite type of music. Whenever I look it up on iTunes or anything, it always just says alternative, but that's such a wide range of music. So by alternative music, I mean stuff like Missio. It's very, it's kind of trancey, it's melodic, but there's also a lot of percussion usually, and there's electronic inspiration in there. Yeah, just look up Missio, and you'll see what kind of music I like. If you're sensitive to topics about drugs or alcohol, then I would not recommend it. Julia Art asks, do you listen to music when you make art, or do you have anything playing in the background? Do you just sit silently so you're not distracted? So it really depends on my mood. Sometimes I am listening to music. Every once in a while I'll listen to an audiobook, but that's not often. I really prefer reading books. And sometimes I do just like silence. It just depends on how the music is affecting my brain, if that makes sense. Like sometimes the music will overwhelm my brain with too many thoughts. During those times, I really like to just crack the window a little bit and listen to the birds and the wind. I Am True Tina asks, how do you find inspiration for each piece you make? That's a tough question because I don't really pinpoint my inspiration. I try to be a sponge and I just take in what I see, take in what I know, what I've learned, and just I end up having feelings about that, and those feelings turn into a piece. Sorry that I can't be more specific. Moon During the Day asks, do you get pressure and stress about likes, etc. on your art, and how do you cope with that? That is something I think a lot of us artists deal with, is, you know, oh, this piece didn't get as many likes, or this piece got a lot of impressions but not as many likes, and the engagement is really low on it. Have I done something wrong? And it is difficult to set that aside, but it's something that I'm working on, and something that I'm getting better at, just not really paying attention to that, because the number of likes on your artwork doesn't make your artwork good or bad, because there's different engagement levels each day on Instagram. Or what time you post makes a huge difference, and sometimes even that's not very consistent. Like even if you post at the same time, you're still going to get different levels because they're different days. So although it's difficult to not let those things get to you, it's not that big of a deal, you know? So how do I cope? I just tell myself, you know, the people who are there for me as an artist, they really care about me and they care about my work, and they really matter. And it's okay if a piece doesn't get as many likes. So let's see. Kif's Art asks, how did you find your artwork style? You know, like I said, I feel like this is a topic for another video entirely, because style is just a big thing that people talk about and people are curious about. Personally, I don't know how particularly I got my style. I just drew what I found pretty, and if I didn't find something pretty, I tried not to do it again. And that's how I've gotten to where I am now. But I mean, there are still things, lots of things that I draw, and I still post them, but like I don't like how her nose turned out or how her face entirely turned out and things like that. So I mean, it's just really the process of learning what you like and don't like, and you eventually find a style that way. Just Some Person 1920 asks, how do you approach sketchbook doodles differently from more polished pieces, if at all? And one of my go-to icebreaker questions, if you were a cucumber but believed with all your heart that you were a human, what kind of pet would you want to own? That's pretty funny. So sketchbook doodles versus polished pieces. Well, if you watched my sketchbook tour, you know that I am not much of a person to sketch. I usually just draw something on the piece of paper, which I know is horrible and I shouldn't do that. But yeah, at this point I'm trying to train myself to sketch in my sketchbook first and then do the polished piece. So at this point I don't really have an approach, just because I'm pretty new to taking that road. As far as the cucumber question, if I were a cucumber, what pet would I want to have? I mean, I feel like I'd want to have a pet that wouldn't eat me. I'll have a bumblebee as a pet. A bumblebee would not eat a cucumber. Yeah, we'll go with that. Lviv Art asks, she says, art question, did you learn how to draw all by yourself? And a personal question, do you have or want any pets? For the art question, sort of. So like I said, I did go to college for a little bit. I was studying to become a neuropsychologist, and I had a coworker who was an art major, and she really reminded me of my love for art, and I decided that I wanted to go do that. So I did take art classes there, and I did learn a little bit. The reason why I left without finishing my bachelor's of art degree, though, is because I felt like I was learning more on my own, and I could learn more if I had more time. So I learned a lot of what I know now by myself. The personal one, do I have or want any pets? I do have one cat. Her name is Tabby. I've never been very good with coming up with names, so yes, she is a tabby cat. I've had a lot of pets in my life, and if I could have another pet, I would honestly get a German Shepherd, because I miss my puppy dearly. She was in my life for almost 13 years. All right, Nathan Bergfelt asks, what's your favorite Pokemon? I always liked Ninetales. Kastriknik says, hey Nadia, I saw you recently saying that you're feeling a bit stagnated with your art because it all comes to the same style, etc. And there's an artist that I like that I can see an art from her in anywhere and I can recognize that it's her. So I want to ask how you know if you're stagnated or you're just doing your style. I don't know if it's understandable, but I mean, what's the fine line between them? For me, I realized that I've become stagnated. It's not because of consistency in style. It's because I'm kind of drawing the same pose and the same face angle over and over again. So that's how I know that I've become stagnated. It would be different for everybody, I think, just because you know what you like and don't like. And if you look across your artwork and see, the same themes throughout, that's different than being the same pose. I feel like if you're doing the same pose, and if you do this and that's part of your aesthetic, then it's totally fine. But for me, I know that I want variation. So I know looking at that, I have become stagnated in the sense that, again, I'm drawing the same pose or I'm drawing the same face angle, things like that. Gingerly Drawn asks, what is your favorite genre? Do you ever consider yourself living in the fantastical style you usually draw in? By genre, if you mean by music, of course that was answered earlier. As far as books go, I really like horror books. Do I ever consider myself living in a fantastical style? Not really, and I think that's why I draw it so often. I mean, let's see. I daydream a lot, so maybe. I do daydream a lot, and when I'm outside, I do get lost in my thoughts outside. I get lost in my thoughts inside too. That doesn't matter. So, I mean, I guess a little bit, but as far as like how whimsical and fantastical my work can be, I am not like so far into it that I think that I am living that, if that makes sense. Wakimi asks, this might be a crappy one, but how long did it take you to achieve so many followers? That's not a crappy question, don't worry. Let's see. I think I started my art account in 2015. So, I mean, it's taken me 3 years, but like I said earlier, nothing was really happening for a while. It was about a year ago, I think, that I started to actually communicate with people and to reach out to the people in the community, the art community. So just in the past year, the growth has been ridiculous on my account, and it's unbelievable, and I'm so grateful. I'll try to make another video on that, but I don't honestly really know how it happened, but I can make a video on how I think, or what factors I think went into growing it that much. Kellyanne Nix, who is your biggest inspiration in your art journey? It's hard to say just one person. I don't know, I'll have to think on that one a little bit, because I know somebody else asks that further down the list. So let's move on for now so that I don't take up time just saying Oh, right. Oh, this question is next. The one that I was thinking of. Gibson Jaws asks, who is your favorite artist? Is it contemporary or all-time favorite artist, and why have I chosen them? Does it influence my art a lot? This one's so hard because I love so many artists. Like I said, I named 3 artists who have really inspired me over time: Audra Claire, Ravina Kai, and James Jean. But there isn't really just one artist who inspires me or who is my favorite, because I don't know if this happens to you guys, but for me personally, it changes all the time, just depending on my mood, like looking at art from one artist. One day they could be my favorite, and the next day it's somebody else. And I know that sounds really weird, but it's just because of what my tastes are that day. Lately, I've been really liking Yodka, I think it is. I recently discovered her work, but just looking at it, it's like an eyegasm. I will link her in the description below so that you can see. But her work is just gorgeous and it's beautiful. But I can't really say that I have one favorite artist in particular. 2 Colors Away asks, what inspires your style of drawing? Like I said, inspiration, it just comes from everywhere for me. Macy's Foxy Art says, oh, I just started watching your videos. They're amazing. Thank you. That's so very sweet. Wild Roses Lemon Lights asks, what is your favorite thing about being an artist? I get to do something that is an outlet for how I'm feeling, what's on my mind, etc. And I mean, you know, so many people growing up tell you can't be an artist for a living. You're just a starving artist. But it's, with the internet, that's so not true. We have such an amazing community of people who will support you, and it's really amazing. And I think one of my favorite things about being an artist is really just having all these connections with people on a personal level. And it makes it really surreal, because I never would have met these people if they had not also been into art, and without us having access to the internet all around the world. I mean, my very good art friends, there's one in the lower 48 of the United States. I have a couple in Germany, in the UK. I mean, they're just in Canada. I mean, it's all over the place. And I think that's one of my favorite things about being an artist, honestly. Moontone Yelling asks, how much caloric intake of meme concentration juice do you obtain on a regular basis? That's a great question. Not as much as I used to, unfortunately. I don't really have time. Kyo Karlika, I'm really sorry. I probably just butchered that, and that's probably not even close to how you pronounce it. She wanted to ask which artists are your main inspirations and if I would recommend any books, not necessarily art related. So I've already answered the artist question, so I'll just go right into the books. A Series of Unfortunate Events by Lemony Snicket is really great. C.S. Lewis, his books are really good. I really like the Fear Street books by R.L. Stine. Jordan Shabat, it asks, why do you make art? What do you love about art? Is it more of an outlet for your emotions or an escape from your emotions, or is it something separate from your feeling? As far as feelings go, it is both an outlet for my feelings and from my feelings. There are times, when my husband or my best friend, who actually asked this question, Jordan, hi, you will ask me what's on my mind or, something. And my response a lot of times is, I don't know how to put it into words. I've never been the best with words. So for me, art is a really good way to get those feelings out for how I'm feeling. And sometimes those feelings are really negative. Like if I'm having a really bad episode of depression or anxiety, then I need an escape from those feelings. And I use art that way. And sometimes if it's sadness or even anger or even happiness sometimes, then it's more of an outlet for the feelings instead of from them, if that makes sense. Holly the Lazy Artist asks, what art method, medium, style have you never tried but are keen to have a go at? Ooh, that's a tough one. I guess the medium, let's go with the one that I've used the least, because I can't think of a medium that I haven't tried at least once. The least I've used is probably oil paints. I would like to attempt them more because I love how nicely they blend, but I don't like the cleanup. So I might try water-soluble oil paints in the future. Let's see, Leopard Upol asks, when did you first decide that you wanted to do art? How did you decide? If you mean like art professionally, it was in my sophomore year of college, I think. Yeah, I think it was towards the end of my second year, actually. Like I said, I had a coworker who was an art major, and she kind of just reminded me of my love for art and all the possibilities that you could do being an artist. I mean, it's so much more than what society tells you, that it's just a person at home painting something and they're not making any money. I mean, we have concept artists, we have comic artists, and we have so many different art fields, and so it's something that I wanted to do. So that was, I think, 2014 when I kind of made the decision in my head, or I was considering it, I think. Art of Awoden asks, what do you do when you don't know what to draw? Also, do you have a specific thing to draw when you can always return to drawing if or when that happens? So, like I said, if I can't draw, I step away, usually, because if I force myself to do it, then I get burnt out, and then it'll take me even longer to recover. The specific thing that I can draw that I always return to that's in my comfort zone is obviously just like a female with flowy hair or a creepy hand. Casey NX asks, what are some drawing exercises you used when you first started out or still use to improve your drawings? I don't really have drawing exercises. One that I started recently was the blob exercise that you might have seen as in my sketchbook tour. That's really helpful for just getting the creative juices flowing. Akira Camelot 1701 asks, when did you get really interested in art and or being an artist? So I think I answered that a little bit ago, but I think it was in 2014 that I started considering it. And then it was last year, I believe, that I actually started making an effort in my art. And it honestly wasn't until this year that I started to pursue a career in art. So, and the last question is, hi Smittens, how do you draw hands? So again, with that, I'll make a tutorial. I feel like that'd be really hard to explain, but the biggest thing is, with anything really that you're drawing, your mind tends to overcomplicate things because it thinks it knows what something looks like, and if it doesn't look like that in the drawing, then you're trying to fix it and you're trying to work it and work it and work it. Think of things that you're having a hard time drawing, especially with hands, as shapes. That's all it comes down to, is their shapes. With hands, I mean, it's just a bunch of like rectangles for the fingers and, you know, a box for the hand, kind of, when you're first starting out. And then once you get those fundamentals down, though, I mean, it just comes so naturally. So it really comes down to practice, and just breaking things down is my biggest advice to you if you're having a hard time drawing something. But again, I'll make a tutorial on how to draw things within a couple of months. If you made it all the way to the end of this Q&A video, I am very proud of you. I'm not gonna lie. I'm really sorry that it was so long. I think next time I might break it up into a few videos, just so that it isn't as long next time. But thank you so much for your questions. It was really fun to be able to talk with you and to have a conversation, and I hope that some of the information was helpful, and I hope I wasn't too terribly awkward. And I'm sorry for the technological hiccups. My camera shut off a couple of times, so I know there were a couple of parts that may have seemed a little cut off or something, I don't know. Anyway, if you like this video, I hope you consider giving it a thumbs up, and I hope that you will consider subscribing to my channel, and I really appreciate you being here. And if you have any questions for future Q&A videos, go ahead and comment down below. And as always, if you ever need to contact me, you can email me, you can message me on social media, you can comment down below, whatever works best for you. I'm always here for you guys. So I hope you have a lovely day, and I will see you all later. Bye!